Time out.
Can you hear me?
No.
Can you hear? I think that one's better. All right. Welcome to the January 23rd meeting of the Mobile City Planning Commission. I'm going to review our operating procedures. Our meeting is divided into two sessions, the public hearing session and the deliberation session. In the public hearing session, an application or group application on the agenda is called. The applicant makes his or her presentation, commission members ask questions, and members of the public make their comments. Only 4 people may speak for an item and 4 against. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes, subject to questions by the commission. After 4 minutes, a loud beep will indicate 1 minute left to speak, and at this point, please summarize your comments. After all the opposition speakers have finished, the applicant will be given time to respond. If you do intend to speak, please come to the podium, speak into the microphone, and give your name and address for our minutes. Please direct all comments to the commission only, not to the applicant or the audience, and please remember to speak directly into the microphone. On routine applications, the applicant may simply raise his or her hand if there are no objections to the staff recommendations. I will then announce the applicant is in full agreement with those recommendations. If there are any questions, the applicant will be given an opportunity to respond. After hearing all applications, the commission will go into deliberation session. In the deliberation session, the commissioners discuss each application with input from staff as necessary, but with no input from the audience. The commissioners then vote on each application, and results of the voting can be learned from the planning department. If some issues arise in the deliberation session that were not addressed in the public hearing, the chairman has the discretion either to allow additional comments pertaining to those issues in order to resolve them, or call for the application to be held over for discussion at a future meeting. Occasionally, 1 or more commission members may recuse themselves from discussing and voting on an application. A recusal does not necessarily mean the member is directly involved with the application or the applicant. Depending on the circumstances, ethical rules may require a recusal when there is only the slightest appearance of a conflict of interest. If a regular member recuses, a supernumerary will vote in their stead unless both supernumeraries are already voting due to absences. The Planning Commission makes final decisions subject to appeal on subdivisions, planning approvals, and planned unit developments. The Planning Commission only makes recommendations on zoning applications, with the City Council making the final decision. Please turn off all cell phones at this time. Commissioners and staff, please remember to turn on your microphones when speaking. I'll call the roll. Ms. Libby Latham. Here. I'm Jennifer Denson. Mr. Alan Cameron. Here. Mr. Matt Anderson. Here. Nick Amberger.
Here.
Bess Rich. Here. Don Hembry.
Here.
Jay Stubbs.
Here.
Okay. So we will begin with our agenda. The first agenda item is 2409 Wolf Ridge Road, which was a holdover.
The applicant has submitted a withdrawal letter, so we can move on to item number 2.
Thank you. New subdivision applications. On this one?
Okay,
Okay.
on
Mr.
item...
Cameron is recused on number 2, 952 South Conception Street.
Okay.
The staff has recommended a holdover until February 20th. Yes, ma'am.
We received documentation from the applicant that the balance of the property that we were concerned about, shown in red up there, was actually condemned by the state for a project, and they have submitted the corresponding paperwork. We now are recommending approval, subject to the conditions that the commission members have at their spaces, and we have provided a copy to the applicant.
Is the applicant present? Are you in agreement with the staff recommendations? The applicant's in agreement with the staff recommendations. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of the application? Anyone here to speak against? Moving on to number 3, a new sidewalk waiver. The staff has recommended approval of the sidewalk waiver at 6200 Rangeline Road. Is the applicant present? Is anyone here to speak for or against this application? Oh, I'm sorry. You'd like to speak in favor of?
I'm just here just to see
Okay, thank you. I didn't see him. So you're the applicant, is that correct? Okay, and you're in agreement with the approval of the waiver? Thank you. Anyone here to speak against the waiver being approved? Moving to number 4, new group applications, 5001 and 5009 Cottage Hill Road. The application is recommended for tentative approval. Is the applicant present? Are you in agreement with the staff recommendations? Okay. The applicant is in agreement with staff recommendations. Is there anyone here that would like to speak in favor of the application? Anyone here to speak against? I kind of flew through this. Did the commissioners have any questions for any of these at this point? Thank you. And you're in agreement with the recommendations for the PUD and the zoning portion of this as well? Okay. Thank you. That concludes our public hearing. We'll now move into the deliberation process. As Mrs. Pappas stated, number 1 has been withdrawn. Number 2, 952 South Conception Street. The commission has staff recommendations before them that the applicant has agreed to. Is there questions by the commission? Is there a motion?
Second.
The application has been properly motioned and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. The sidewalk waiver application, number 3, 6200 Range Line Road. The request has been, it is recommended for approval. Any questions by the commission? Is there a motion?
Second.
The application has been properly motioned and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Number 4, 5001 and 5009 Cottage Hill Road. Are there any questions by the commission?
I have a question of the staff. On Lot 1, are those 2 separate restaurants with 2 separate drive-throughs?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We have anything like that in Mobile?
There are some out towards the University of South Alabama where you'll have a drive-through restaurant on each end. I can't immediately think of one offhand where there's just 2 side by side.
Yeah. So they can't have the double line, can they?
They do not have, based on this site plan configuration, they do
would-
not have the room for that.
Yeah, exactly. And they can only enter in on Cottage Hill in one location, correct?
Correct. There's one curb cut, 2-way to Cottage Hill, one curb cut, 2-way to Demetropolis.
All right, I see that. Are they able to cross over Cottage Hill to go, I guess that would be, what, east and west? Is there a divider there, or is it,
No, ma'am, it's
it's open? So it's open there, yeah. I didn't know how close it was up to the intersection where the traffic light is, far enough away. I guess traffic already.
traffic's looked at
Got
it.
it, yeah. Okay, just curious.
I have sorry.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Mrs. Rich?
No.
Now we're going to take these individually?
Yes, I have a quick question, though, about the location of the dumpsters. I understand that's a suitable spot per
code.
per code, but I wonder, has the owner of is the applicant also the owner of this building? Do the people who rent the space, the cleaning community, do they know that the the dumpsters are going to be right there at the front of their building?
I'm purchasing that based on the result of this meeting.
And you're comfortable with the dumpsters being right there? Okay. Okay.
Is there an option?
I believe this is site specific. Is that correct, Mrs. Pappas?
It's site plan specific, and food service has to have an on-site dumpster.
Right. But if they chose to move the dumpsters, would they have to come back to the planning commission?
Yes, they would.
Okay. All right, yes, Mr. Hembry, we are going to take them separately. So the first item will be the subdivision.
To move to approve the subdivision based on staff recommendations.
Properly motioned and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. The second item is the planned unit development.
Move to approve based on staff recommendations, findings of facts A, C, and E.
Second.
Properly motioned and seconded. Any, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I would like to note for the record that Mr. Cameron was recused on number 2. Is that correct, Mr. Cameron? I believe I neglected to mention that at the time. That is all of our items on the agenda.
Zoning.
Rezoning.
C.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I apologize. Yes, we have number C, the rezoning. Is there a motion?
Second.
Properly motioned and seconded. Is there, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
You have to
Opposed?
have the findings of facts on the rezoning.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Rezonings did not require the findings of fact. The PUD did, and Mr. Henry included those in his motion, A, C, and E.
So the PUD's tied to the rezoning?
No.
So don't you think you should have, just saying?
If at all possible, I would like, I think we discussed this at the last meeting, to, when we do a rezoning, just like a PUD, to name a criteria, I don't know if you call it a findings of fact, but one of the 4 criteria to justify a rezoning, so when it gets to city council, there won't be any issues. So we need to, I don't, used to have them memorized, a change in circumstances in the neighborhood, a need for more of those type uses because of the subdivision. There is a need for a rezoning, and the 4th one is, is that in the staff report?
Who made the motion for the zoning?
Mr. Anderson, would you like to amend your motion?
I'll amend my motion to include, what was the?
Where are they? They're in the staff report.
On page 5, approximately the second large paragraph, you have 4 items listed.
Manifest error, changing conditions, increase the number of sites for these type businesses because of the subdivision, it justifies rezoning.
The other thing to consider on this one, you have split zone property already.
It's really the subdivision because you tied in the R1 to the Z2,
Yeah, so amended. Yeah.
or just to include, yeah.
So we have an amended motion.
All right, Mr. Anderson has amended his motion. Is there a
Yeah.
second? I'm sorry, wait, is there? Okay. Mr. Amberger seconds. All in favor? All opposed? Is there any other business?
I did have one item. The 401 Dolphin Street heard at the last meeting. They filed an appeal yesterday. We're beginning to gather all the documents together. We have 15 days to get the packet to the city clerk's office. In the past, we have forwarded draft minutes. However, it's been requested that we try, if available, to have the commission approve the minutes for just that particular hearing. The minutes have been drafted, and we will send those to y'all with your February packet for you to approve at your next
And
meeting.
that was the music venue?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Needs to be an art gallery.
Any questions or concerns to be raised by the commissioners? Hearing none, the agenda, the deliberation session is concluded. Adjourned.
We went to Astra, they took
Well, I'm
industrial
glad I
warehouse space
exceeded
like
the
that,
speed
open
limit
space,
to get here
and they
for
have
a
like
10-minute
artisans that sell their wares, and they have a manager that oversees if they're not present, actually throwing
I
their
got home
pottery
faster
or
from
painting.
Montgomery than I have
And it
ever
was
got.